Hey everyone, I am Corey Atanasoff, joined by co-host Gerald Mendoza, and this is We Talk Politics. Today we are going to be covering election news, environmental concerns, global politics, as well as some other things in the notion of coronavirus. So we're going to start this off with the new tropical storms that are processing through the Atlantic Ocean. Currently, Hurricane Sally is running through the Gulf, and it is expected to hit the area on Tuesday afternoon. I do believe so.
Right.
Right now, it is classified as a Cat 2, but it could very soon upgrade to a Category 3, with wind speeds gusting over 111 miles an hour right now. Gerald, do you think that this might have any significant impact, more so than the hurricanes that we just saw just over a week ago?
I wouldn't say uh, I wouldn't say any more or less significant impact. Obviously, there was a lot of wind and flooding that people are still recovering from on the I believe it was the western part of the Louisiana Delta on the coastline, and a lot closer to Texas. But this is going to hit the other side of Louisiana as well, but more directly towards Mississippi and Alabama's coastline. So again, a different part of the country, still a potentially devastating weather situation that the Gulf Coast is going to be gearing up for. Something that I'm sure they weren't waiting for. But then again, as our title suggests, as if 2020 couldn't get any worse. And by the way, if you are that person who keeps on asking, how much worse 2020 can get, I need you to stop because I
Because
don't know how much.
it can only get worse.
At this point, we have proven that there is no limit to how much worse 2020 can get. So
And
stop asking.
as you mentioned to me in the pre-show, there are currently 5 tropical storms in the Atlantic right now.
Yes.
Right now, Hurricane Sally, however, is expected to generate a storm surge of up to 11 feet for parts of the Gulf Coast and up to 16 inches of rainfall for Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, which all have created a state of emergency for their own respective states. There are 17 million people right now in the path of the hurricane, the expected path. So if you are living on the Gulf Coast or around that area, hunker down, be safe, stay inside, and listen to all local weather alerts. Exactly. I do think that, unfortunately, it is now gearing towards hurricane season, and we are in hurricane season. As soon as September hits, you expect it. And this region of America is hit harder by hurricanes than anybody else, as we saw back in New Orleans a decade ago now, and we saw it in Houston a few years ago. Now it's only getting more intense and more frequent. But hunker down, stay safe, listen to your local weather alerts. Another piece in the middle of American environmental concerns are the ever-present California wildfires, which have approximated to have burned over 3.2 million acres of land, which is roughly the size of Connecticut. Now, all of these wildfires had different starting points, but one of the most notable was one of them began after a failed gender reveal party in California. Now, Gerald, what do you think that this means for California, as we've seen wildfires over the past decade in that state alone? But this is also pushing past that and affecting in an area base around half of the United States, mostly westernly.
Yeah, definitely. And there's been some much more significant effects on not only the state of California. There's also fires raging in Oregon, and it's getting up towards the Patagonia region. So Oregon and Washington are also being affected by some blazes that are going up. But yeah, this is still one of the biggest fire situations that the state of California has ever dealt with, and that is not an understatement. I mean, that's not a hyperbole. This is again part of 2020, but also a situation that they are having to adapt to very quickly. Luckily, I think over the weekend there's been a slowing of the winds, and the conditions got more favorable to be able to fight them. That being said, that doesn't last forever, especially in California. So they're trying to take advantage as much as they can of the favorable weather around them to be able to combat these flames. But to put this into perspective, um, the smoke, the smoke that is in the air traveling through and across the United States, really, is going. I don't know if it did or it is going to reach the state of Maryland sometime within the next 24 hours.
Oh,
So
towards like Garrett County in the upper northwest.
it's gonna fly over the entire state.
Oh, wow, that's the first I'm hearing of this. So
Yeah,
keep your
it's
eyes open, everybody in
it,
Maryland.
yeah, and it's not going to be like a significant like you see just a giant cloud of dark. It'll be very thin. It'll be wispy, but it's definitely just gonna. It's if you think it's clouds, it's actually
It's more
smoke
of a
from
smog.
yeah from California.
Well,
So
according
yeah,
to CNN reports, CAL FIRE said on Monday that nearly 16,500 firefighters have been battling 28 major wildfires in the state of California, which unfortunately have left 24 people dead and over 4,200 structures destroyed. My thoughts go out to the families and those who were the 24 people. However, I can rest that at only 24 people have been fatalityed after this tragedy. And I'm glad for modern science being able to see the path of these things. So
right,
thank
and
you to the
exactly
firefighters, and thank you for the predictive response teams who have put out notifications that these fires are coming. You need to evacuate.
right, and to the same effect that we said earlier with the hurricanes. Listen to your public safety officials when it comes to evacuation orders or um, any guidance that they give you in terms of how to protect you yourself and or your property. If you can protect your property, great, go ahead. If you can't and you just need to you know get out of there, do do so diligently, as safely as possible, but do so with some haste, because we know, or at least it is well known fact, that when it comes to wildfires, they are extremely unpredictable in terms of not the path that they're going, but in how quickly a time set that they have to really just take over everything around you. And let's again praying for the families who have already lost people in California, for the people who might be next on the till to lose their property, lose their livelihoods, their businesses, their homes for decades at this point. It's a very I'm sure it's going to be a very traumatic experience, and therefore they need all the support they can get. So yeah, just hearts go out to people in California, and do stay safe if you are out there.
And in addition, these wildfires are primarily based off of the fact that California has been in a drought for the better part of many, many, many years that we have seen. And the lack of rain turns all of the trees and leaves to be way too dry and way too formidable to being inoculated into some kind of fire and wildfire situation. So as we see on the East Coast, if anything does reach here, it should slow down. And even in the upper not quite, well, northwest, it should slow down and not head quite into the border of Canada because they have significant amounts of rainfall. But as you were mentioning, it is taking some toll in the Patagonias. But I expect the fall to stop just about the Mississippi River if fires are already engaged there. And they should stop about midway up the Appalachian Trail and not hit upper or even any part of New England or the mid-Atlantic region. Our president currently has asserted that the fires were due to poor management and that it will get better. Gerald, you have some thoughts on this matter.
um yeah, I don't know if he said that one out loud or if he said it through a tweet. I don't At this point I don't know which one I'm scared of more, but the president is known to just say things that really have no uh, factual base, but they sound good to him, so he just blurts them out sometimes. In this case, I do think that there is an air of truth to what he said. That yeah, there could have been better management. There could have been some better, monitoring of the condition of some of these drier forests that were around the area. However, there's also you got to bring in the question about the effects uh, that climate change is having on the state of California at these moments, because these are technically getting worse every single year at this point, and especially this year. And I think he was having a meeting with some emergency directors in the state of California earlier today. If I'm not mistaken, it was either earlier today or yesterday. But there was a video of him saying, of an emergency official in California saying, sitting next, not next to the president, but sitting in the same conference as the president, and saying, the president, I would like him to acknowledge what the effects of climate change are having on this current situation. And the president responded by saying, "It's like you said, it'll get better. It's gonna get cooler soon." And I forget the official's name, but he was quick to come back and saying, he's like, "I wish the science agreed with you." So,
Well, that's the last thing that you want to hear from somebody else when you're trying to make a point of your own is, I wish science agreed with you.
right, exactly.
So we will be moving on now to our next topic, which is international politics, which you probably should be more invested in if you're not already looking into international politics. And the number one thing on our docket right now is Japan has now democratically selected their next leader and their next prime minister to replace Shinzo Abe, who stepped down earlier this year due to health concerns. And it will be his number two man, Yoshihide Suga, as I will now confidently call him Yoshi, because I think that is a very appropriate nickname. This follows, as I had previously said, Shinzo Abe stepping down and required a special election to put up a new PM for the state. Shinzo Abe currently, as I do so believe, is managing the state of Japan and their foreign affairs. However, their next leader has been selected. Gerald, what are your thoughts?
Um, if there's one thing we've seen with Japan, the nation's relationship with Japan has been very strong and consistent throughout. Not only really, and I mentioned it earlier to do that. It's the surprising thing to me is that it's been consistent through the Trump administration, whereas other relationships with other nations have either gotten considerably better, as with let's say Israel, and the Trumps pushing to become a much more involved ally with Israel, and I forget what other nation we ended up having better relationships with. I guess technically you can say North Korea, because we actually started opening up diplomatic ties with them. Yeah, or they've gotten considerably worse, as they have with
Iran,
Iran,
China.
yeah, China. So, but if there's one thing that's gotten that is at least been a sense given the nation in terms of foreign policy, a sense of security, it has been the strong, consistent relationship with Japan. And this relationship has been bolstered through different situations and different events, such as the opening up diplomatic ties with North Korea, which was helped in part by not only South Korea and the North Koreans, but also Japan, and I believe Singapore was also part of the mix in being one of the hosts for these special meetings that the president had with the leader of North Korea. Um, and also just has Japan has just always been a good trading partner with the U.S. and economic partner that has they've bolstered each other up very much. And in a time of economic crisis, that has been more important than ever to know that you have a consistent partner who wants to help you be better in the economy, in your economy, so that they can be better in their economy. So they've been definitely high up on the list of good international friendships that this country has had. And I don't think it's going to change much with this new leader. I'm not sure, but considering he's been like deputy minister for the state of Japan, Shinzo Abe's right hand man, and since Shinzo Abe has such a good relationship with the president and the administration and the nation, I think that's going to continue, and it's going to continue through the election. It's going to continue through whatever either the next term of President Trump or the new presidency of President Biden. We don't know, but I will say, knowing that on the international stage, Japan is still on our side, gives me personally a sense of economic and foreign security.
Well, Japan is one of the largest exporters to the United States that we see in the world today. And we get a lot of our technologies from Japan, as well as in that Asian area, with China being number one for anything ever. You look on the back of anything that says made in China. South Korea is also up there on that list. But Japan has held steadily in the technology department for us and has been a great ally ever since, getting trounced in a major world war. They have made very many amends and have been an incredible partner to the United States. So I really look forward to seeing what Yoshi can do with American, Japanese negotiations and treaties and alliances in the next years to come. For note, he is 71 years old, so he will only be holding the office for as long as he sees fit. This is not a young leader who will be bringing some kind of revolution to the country, as we've seen in various other countries, including America, with Barack Obama being our president from 2008 until 2016, being a young leader who could do anything that he wanted because the world and America was his oyster. So props to him for winning the election, and I can't wait to see what it has to bring to the United States.
Right.
And
next on the international politics stage, we have we mentioned this the last time we had a stream, was the first Arab nation of the United Arab Emirates had officially opened diplomatic ties with the nation state of Israel, which was big news considering this is the first Arab nation to ever do so, to recognize even that Israel existed or had a right to exist. And this, obviously was considerable news. Well, just a few days ago, President Trump had announced, and he had helped foster another peace deal between Israel and another Arab nation, this time the nation of Bahrain. Again, and I predicted this. I'm not going to say I predicted this, but I said there was always a potential. I said once that first step is done by one nation, we can see the potential for more Arab nations being more willing to open up diplomatic ties with Israel, and that's exactly what we're seeing happen right now with the nation of Bahrain. So, or I think it's a kingdom technically, but again, this is significant in the fact this is the second Arab nation to open diplomatic ties with the nation of Israel through a peace deal that President Trump. I don't know exactly how much he was involved in it, but he was definitely involved in it because the current Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu does have a good relationship with President Trump. I mean, I'm interested to see what this means. If you're a religious scholar, then it means something else. But we'll see where this takes us. We'll see how far it goes. Again, nothing is permanent in the Arab nations when it comes to Israel, because we know that Arab nations can be very finicky. They can get together for a little bit and then things can fall apart. I don't know. Hopefully, this could be the beginning of a peace between the Arab nations and Israel. Maybe this could be the beginning of them finding a way to manage the situation with Palestine and the Gaza Strip, or the settlements in the West Bank of Jerusalem. We don't know. I don't know where these deals are going to lead to, but I know they're going to lead to something. And now that they actually have those open official diplomatic ties, I'm interested to see what direction both Israel and the Arab nations end up going in.
Well, for this one, the most interesting thing that I see is Bahrain, especially being on the forefront of this one specific agreement. And I think that there might be another motivation, and it's to try to ward off Iran from any kind of political move to get into Israel. I think that Bahrain they have historically and politically been one of Iran's biggest opponents. So I think that they might make a good push to try to defend Israel from any kind of Shiite or Irani push that would impact Israel's future as a nation. I would also be interested in seeing how this changes the conflict on the Gaza Strip, their turmoil with Palestine, and how it works on that West Bank, as we have seen being a almost war zone like area over, as I've said too many times, the last decade. So it will be very interesting to see how this pans out. Will it open the door to many, many more peace treaties and alliances with Israel? Are these just two different countries that made alignments and made treaties for their own interests? If you have an opinion on it, let us know in the comments because we love to hear from you guys.
Right, exactly. And if I can just add this little tidbit in, uh, the Arab world and really the Middle East has just been which one of those nations was going to stand out as the real um, leader and influencer of the other nations. And it's for a long time it was between Saudi Arabia and Iran. But now I believe, honestly, Israel is making a push to be someone who can be the influencer now that it's opening diplomatic ties, and also Turkey with President Erdogan, I believe, who's still in
Yep.
power, um, really making a push on the international stage as a Middle East powerhouse and really becoming a new, I guess, trying to gain a new sphere of influence over the Middle East that with being more open to the rest of the world in terms of more than just trading oil. So again, interested to see what this means for the region as a whole. Interested to see what this means politically for the region, and we'll see where this goes. Hopefully, if anything, this just means a less bloodshed in general than what would have happened if these treaties and these peace deals had not been made.
I agree wholeheartedly. The Middle East has been a hotbed for conflict over the past 30 years, ever since the United States got their fingers in, and even before that. And it's any movement towards any kind of peace deal or
Well,
negotiation or go ahead.
If we're being honest, it's been a hotbed for conflict since.
Well, since Jesus Christ was born, but
No, before then, I think.
before then, even yes.
I
I
remember
was using a figure of speech there, but
I was about to say, remember the Babylonians and all that.
correct. Yeah. Well, there's never been necessarily a time of love and peace. Correct. But these negotiations get anybody closer to seeing that form of world peace as we could see in that area. And I, as Gerald said, and I will just again reiterate, am hopeful that this breeds a new chapter in the Middle Eastern history with a period of friendship, grace, and love.
Yeah, definitely. So that basically wraps up our international politics segment. I do want to circle back around to one thing that we should take note. It is the seasons are starting to change. I don't know if you've noticed. I don't know if you were outside today, Corey. It felt a tiny bit chilly.
I was outside on for Saturday evening, and my I drive a black sedan with leather seats, so it gets really hot inside. And the car thermometer is kind of off, and it usually gives unusually high temperatures, but it measured that it was 68 degrees. And as I was driving home, I was thinking to myself, and I said out loud, it's not 68 degrees outside. And then I stepped out of my car, and it was chilly. So I see the seasons are taking a turn.
Right, and we mentioned that to really reiterate the fact that regular flu season is most likely still coming, guys. So not only that, because the seasons are changing, also allergies are coming in strong. So we're headed towards a very what could be confusing or tense moment for what people see as general health in the country. Um, Dr. Anthony Fauci has advised the country to really consider hunkering down, getting ready to get through the coming flu season safely, so that not only will it deter the spread of COVID, but also hopefully, if we're all being more mindful about our health, then hopefully we will have a better than normal flu season as well, in terms of less cases getting propagated. It's still going to be a mess because anybody who gets the flu is going to believe they have COVID, possibly, because there's a lot of overlapping symptoms. There's a lot of things that can be misconstrued. Again, hopefully, as the months come, testing will become even better as we go along. But in any case, in general, the only thing we can really say about it is keep on being mindful about your health, how healthy you're being with yourself, around others. Make sure you do what you need, your due diligence to stay safe and healthy. If you don't need to go out, don't go out. But if you do, be smart about it. And yeah, other than that, just you know, honestly, winter is coming. We just need to be ready to deal with any confusion that may arise from uh, the overlapping symptoms. I think that's really going to be a kicker for a lot of people. So like, just be aware that there are more than just one illness going around right now, and you still need to protect yourself from it anyway. So just be safe, be healthy, and be aware.
Well, and another aspect of it, which actually could help the case of slowing down the coronavirus spread, would be if anybody thinks that they're sick with the flu, they would be more likely to stay inside and not interact with others, as they might be fearful of having the coronavirus. So, as we've seen in the past, somebody has a cold and then they are exhibiting those overlapping symptoms that COVID-19 has had, and then they isolate themselves anyways, which could be a safe go for the entirety of the United States and the world. However, I do think it is important, as important as it was yesterday, it will be as important tomorrow, to stay vigilant, stay safe, and don't be an idiot. That's the biggest thing. Is you're going outside, are you going to be close to people? Wear a mask. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't hurt anybody. All it does is help. So go out there. If you need to go grocery shopping, which everybody has to, you wear a mask. If you need to go get Taco Bell, you wear a mask. You're going to get a delivery guy comes to your door to deliver you a pizza. Wear a mask. Just whatever you can do to slow the spread. It takes all of us. Is one of the biggest things that they've said about civil rights concerns, and even now it's applicable to this outbreak. It takes all of us. Every single person needs to step up and do your job, and that job is, don't be an idiot. So I hate to put it so tritely, but that's really all it comes down to.
That is, yeah, it really is. And in case you're wondering, um, certain vaccine trials are still going on in the U.S. I think Pfizer made a statement today. The CEO of Pfizer made a statement that there's a potential that Americans will be able to get a vaccine before the end of the year. That's like best case scenario, hopefully. But we don't know. They're still running tests. They're still running everything. So don't bank everything on a vaccine. Bank yourself on being healthy. Being healthy and being smart. So we'll see where all of this leads to. But really, yeah, just stay safe, everybody. And that being said, I think it's time. It's been a while since we. Oh no, wait. Before we get to really digging into
Got to
the
do one more
election,
thing.
yeah, into the election polls. Um, I don't know if he's watching right now, but our
But
friend from the We Talk Sports podcast that we run on Friday evenings.
which you can catch in the description of this video.
Yep, already on link is in the description. Um, PJ Dolan is a huge New York Giants fan. Really, just New York sports
Yep.
fan.
Giants, Knicks, Rangers.
And I checked the score right now, and it is now 26-10. Steelers are winning with the ball.
It was just a touchdown possession by.
Yeah, they just got a touchdown, and there's now only 5.5 minutes left in the quarter. So we'll have fun on Friday talking about that one with PJ, because we're not going to let him live it down.
Oh, well, definitely. So, as if you wish to hear a lot more about sports and hear us talk and goof off for an hour and occasionally discuss food for about 15 minutes, then catch us on our Friday show. We talk sports. But if New York cannot pull back a miracle win, that will mean that Gerald's favorite team, the Washington football team, will be the number one spot in their division. So and my cat is going crazy. I don't know what he's smacking around, but it's something. So Sorry for that interruption.
He sees a ghost. Don't worry. He's protecting you.
He sees something.
Yeah.
I don't even know what he sees half the time.
Right. Again, you say we're leading if the Giants don't win, we're leading the division. But then again, this is the NFC East, so that means that the Cowboys are going to win with a 9-6 record.
Man, 9-7, baby. It gets you into the playoffs.
But anyway, so touching on that, now we can really get into some of the meat. We haven't touched a while. Again, we've been off for a little while, but we do want to review just where everything stands in terms of poll numbers, betting odds, what the commentators are saying in terms of how this election is going to end up. We had a lot of activity, I say, within the betting odds market, if I'm being honest. I don't know if Corey, you saw the swing that happened, or not the swing, but really the plunge that almost happened for Joe Biden. It went up and down and then up again. I'll show you one of the charts from one of the websites we use a lot. I have some of them linked. We have the.
Is this going to be election betting odds by Betfair, FTX, and John Stossel?
That one is that link is in the description. It's one of the ones we use to reference most. But I'm talking about Real Clear Politics. They have a conglomerate between 5 or 6 different betting odds markets or sports books that and then they average them out. And I'm gonna pull it up on the screen real quick, just to show you what I'm seeing, what I saw the other day, and that is all right. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. This is the rolling average. This is back in March. This is about the beginning of March. This is what the betting markets had. And even through April, May, and June, even though the poll numbers were all favorable towards Joe Biden.
And for an honorable mention, this was after Joe Biden was the only remaining candidate in the race, is when you start to see that hike up.
Right, exactly. So at least here, yeah. And then through here, even though this stagnant part is when he was already, the presumptive nominee, as they call him, and they, even though the poll numbers nationally were all showing a Biden win, we still looked at the betting. This is why we like to look at the betting markets, because the numbers still show that Donald Trump had a better chance of winning the election. And then in June, when the COVID-19 crisis got a lot worse in terms of how the management of it was looking really bad for the administration, mixed in with the social unrest that was going on after the death of George Floyd, that sparked off the innumerable protests and demonstrations and movements that we are still seeing today. All of that together is really what pushed Joe Biden over the top, and he really spiked up. He really had a good lead for a long time. Dipped down a little bit, and then in August, kept it pretty broad. And then starting in right around the first week of August, he started going down pretty steadily, and the president chances started going up. It got to the point, and literally just about last week or so, Joe Biden only, in terms of this betting market rolling average chart, he only had a 0.5 favorability rating from this conglomerate chart, which is insane to me, considering his biggest lead was of 24 points over. So that tells me that there was a lot. I don't know if there was a lot of internal turmoil that was not being publicized, or something was going on, but the betting markets were ready to jump ship and go back to Donald Trump being the favorite. And really, the thing that I appreciate, it's now started to even itself out more. And I think right around this margin of about 6.5% is going to be where the average is going to stick to for the most part. But the thing about the betting markets is that when you look at them, they are showing, I'm not going to say an exaggerated amount, but they are showing a more amplified average, or more amplified results, because there's no way Joe Biden is going to win the presidency by 20 electoral votes or anything like that, or by 20% of the popular vote. That's just not how this works. But I think they're a lot more accurate in amplifying the chance of who's going to win, as opposed to polling, because they already take into account polling as well as voting history as well as other information, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. So
no, I agree with you on the basis that these betting odds sites are a lot more reliable than any sort of Quinnipiac poll or other nationwide polling averages, because when it gets to polling, you only get the people who come out to the polls. When you get the betting odds, then that factors in a conglomerate of very many different methods of actually looking at how elections work. As you said, you factor in election and voting history. You factor in where they are campaigning, where their support bases are, and what that means for the rest of the United States,
Where they're spending
where
more
they
money
come
for
from.
right,
Correct. Where they're
more
spending
money for
more
ad
ad revenue.
campaigns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the betting odds, I like those more than I like the polling numbers. As we saw, polling numbers didn't mean jack squat in 2016, as we saw a president who had a 93% chance to lose take office on late January 2016. Now we are prompted to see the same thing. Is if you look at polls, then you're only going to get one number. You're only going to get who came out to those specific polls and what they think. Now you look at these odds and it tells you a little more of the story. It gives you some nuanced ideas on what could happen, what will happen, and what has happened. So if we turn our heads to a different betting site, which we like to look at very often, is electionandbettingodds.com. And that currently has Joe Biden at a 53% chance to win, with Donald Trump at a 44.5% chance, with the field coming in every single person lower than 1%. Kamala Harris is at 0.8, I guess, because they factor in the chance that Joe Biden may not make it until November. If I would have to make an educated guess on why she is that high on it, where's Mike Pence on that at 0.2%?
Yeah,
I believe that is also because they might not expect Donald Trump to make it to November. So these are interesting things to look at. And more so interesting is that map of electoral college. Now, we've discussed a lot of what we think will happen, and the things that I see turning in this are Pennsylvania red, Florida red, and Arizona going red. Now, I think that the rest of the map could stand by on its own, but I am not sure about those three being the place where they are, considering their voting history, their demographics, and who they look to pose as their next president. But this will be definitely an interesting election, to say the least. I would hate to say that it is the most electrifying election that we've seen in the last 20 years, because Y2K election demanded a recount. So I don't know if you can get any closer than that.
Yeah, that is true. I will say about the
And sorry, I need to correct myself. I said late January 2016. I slipped up and should have said late January 2017, because the votings happen on every 4 years, and the elections, or I should say, the day that you're sworn in happens that following January.
Yes. In terms of some of these top battlegrounds, again, Real Clear Politics has a conglomerate of where they see certain states possibly going based on polls, and they use poll conglomerates as well, but only poll conglomerates in terms of how they come up with some of these figures. So they still have Florida going blue, but the lead is only at 1.2%. Pennsylvania, the lead that Joe Biden has, they're showing a 4.3% lead, 49.0 versus 44.7. And again, I think the average is just about 4%. In North Carolina, they're showing that technically, according to the Real Clear Politics conglomerate, North Carolina is leaning Biden by 0.3%, which is basically the margin of error. So, that's basically a dead heat. And I also like to look at 538, because they do an incredible amount of job with statistical analysis, poll analysis, grading certain pollsters, and also using election history. And I think sometimes closer to election day, on election day, actually last time, they used actual betting odds as well as part of their forecasting. So in terms of presidential polls for the state, you said you mentioned Pennsylvania, and I want to focus on Pennsylvania a little bit, because I think that's where you and me are one of the only places where you and me are not technically in agreement as to where we think it's going to go on election day or election week. depending on how things turn out. 538 is showing that right now Biden still has what seems to be a consistent lead of 4.5%, or 4.9%, or basically a 5% chance higher than President Trump to win the election, or to win the state of Pennsylvania during election night. Um, in terms of everything else, though, Arizona is still really close. Uh, I'd say the only one that isn't in the margin of error that could easily flip on election day is Pennsylvania right now. But Florida always going to be in the margin of error. Georgia is still technically, even though it's leaning more red now, is still in the margin of error. And again, that's Atlanta voters coming in strong. But right now, 538 is showing President Trump with a 1.7 point lead over Joe Biden in the state of Georgia, still within a margin of error. And as well as, I just want to take another look at Texas, because Texas was in play at one point earlier this year. And it technically, based on polls, still is. Now, voting history is what's really pushing a lot of people to stay away from saying that Texas is going to flip, because it's Texas. It has not gone for a Democrat since, I believe, Bill Clinton, and if not, it had to have been Jimmy Carter. So I'm not entirely sure when the last time Texas went blue was, but in any case, Texas is still showing a Trump lead at 1% based on polls, and I think voting history is really what's pushing a lot of people to say it's a lot safer than what it looks like. But again, still, that technically Texas, there's still President Trump has a lower chance of winning Texas than Vice President Biden has a chance of winning Pennsylvania, based on polls right now.
Well, I think Texas is almost a shoe-in to go red at this point. We have these reporting numbers and the figures that put up, and as I've said, that the betting odds are a lot more reliable than polling numbers when it comes to looking at futures and looking at actual turnout in elections. But I don't see Texas going blue at this point in time. My attention is put back to Pennsylvania, where we only see a good 4 counties really dominating Pennsylvania, and it's in Philadelphia, Allegheny, Montgomery, and Delaware. The rest of the field went red, aside from the exception of 7 different counties who went light blue, whereas all the others were the bigger counties that went more heavily towards the Clinton side in the 2016 election. And I think that this may follow suit and do the same thing. It was not a landslide in Pennsylvania last year, as current President Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton by a whopping 44,000 votes, or like 69% of the entire percentage of popular vote. But I don't see Texas moving. I would see Pennsylvania moving blue more likely than I would see Texas moving blue.
All right, yeah. No, I get that. And there seems to be, at least on 538, there seems to be a big lack of polls for the state of Arizona.
I have a visual for how Pennsylvania turned out on its election, for how they all voted. And keep in mind that this is only a 40,000 person swing.
Yeah, that was the state of Pennsylvania. Yep.
You see this tiny little blue? That is Philadelphia. And the rest of this is the whole Pennsylvania. But that little chunk right there dominated the rest of Pennsylvania. It looks like a slab of meat. Like, that looks like a really nice steak, like a marbled steak, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And again, that's just... And
I don't eat meat, but I would eat that.
Right. We are
And as he only won by 44,000, he still won 20 electoral votes because in every state except for two of them, it is a winner take all.
Yeah, that's what one vote literally can make the difference, and we've seen that before. Again, election
Well,
2000.
40,000 votes can make a difference.
Well, yeah, yeah, and I want to mention I'll be interested to see on election night how the because if there's one thing that's very that the networks have gotten down almost down to a science to a point. They've only been wrong a certain number of times, but really that they got down on election night. The projection models that they have are pretty accurate. We're not here like I don't know if you've ever watched a United Kingdom general election where they actually sit down and announce vote numbers and results in real time when they
Yeah.
count it when they're counting all that. Yeah, the United States doesn't do that. They have projection models at the networks that really announce, okay, we are projecting that Maryland is going to go. Was it Maryland is going to go blue? California is going to go blue. Kentucky's going to go
Arkansas
red.
is going to go red. Yeah. Yeah.
Kentucky's going to go
Alabama's going to go
red.
red.
Yeah, stuff like that. And I'm interested to see what the projection models are and if even we're going to get to a projection model threshold for some of these states, considering how much each state is going to withhold or want to say, hey, these are the results right now, or not like these are the results right now, but we still have 40% of our voting population and 40% of the votes cast are through mail and we have to count those. So I'm not sure what the networks are going to do because if they project on election night based on how the demographics of people who are going to go out and vote versus the people who are going to mail in or do absentee, we could have a situation where it looks like President Trump won with a 393 electoral vote landslide if we only count the people who voted on election day instead of counting the other 40 to 50% of the ballots that were cast mostly legally through mail. And I say mostly legally because there are some states that are quarreling with the issue of should COVID be one of the reasons to make a valid point for absentee and mail-in voting. I really hope they get that figured out pretty soon because it's almost time to start mailing in your ballots, everybody. And I really do mean that. Like, it is almost time to, like, if you want to be absolutely safe and secure about mailing it in, you got to get it in through just right around the middle of October so that the Postal Service has enough time to really process everything.
I should add this in. If you are a Maryland resident or of the surrounding area, Virginia, Pennsylvania, right now you can request your mail-in ballots 100% for Maryland and Virginia, and I believe Pennsylvania does the same. If you are in one of these states, go ahead and request your mail-in ballot if you do not believe that you are comfortable making it out to a poll. And I'm not requesting mine. I'm going to the polls like a good old-fashioned American because I've done that every year since I was 19 years old. But if you are going to request your ballot, you better do it now because the backup of people who are waiting too long is going to take a toll on the whole system. So request your mail-in ballot if that's the method by which you will be voting. And if not, I will see you at the polls on November 3rd.
Or you could also, there's almost historically always, and I think I'm going to do this, there's always historically a considerable lower amount of people at early voting sessions. If you can do early voting, I would suggest it because it's not in lines of people going to vote. It's just, early voting, stop in. It should be a lot quicker. It should be a lot basically technically safer. And again, I still haven't received a phone call, but I am planning to be a poll worker if they call me up. Like, my name's in the system, so hopefully, like, if they ring me up and say, we need you to work, that's probably what I'm going to do. But if not, again, early voting is just, I think, seems safer, but also I don't want to deal with the Postal Service right now in terms of my ballot, so I'll do early voting. And also, that means my results get counted faster.
Yep.
So anything to help streamline the process at this point, I think, is a good idea. But then again, your choice to vote, it's your vote, and the method by which you vote is also your choice. So you do what you see fit for yourself. And Corey, if I can just pull one more thing before we end tonight's
absolutely
podcast.
Co-host Gerald Mendoza.
Yeah, we have not done our map predictions in a little while.
Well, you don't have to show mine because mine are the exact same as I thought last time.
Okay, perfect. So if obviously we
I'm
try to
locked.
do
I'm locked in at this point, barring anything exceptional happening.
like a polling station getting crashed into by a satellite or something.
Yeah, something like that, or a state getting wiped off the map because of a giant meteor.
We're expecting one of those, apparently. I think.
Either one.
Yeah, but and anyway,
As you said, as if 2020 couldn't get any worse.
I know
A
we just
meteor the size of Chicago has crashed into Texas,
it's Texas,
turning Texas blue.
right? It just hit the one
It was
county
just,
that would
it was
actually.
just full of Chicagoans.
Yeah, that'd be something. It'd be
Yep,
very
that
2020.
I don't
But
know
anyway,
what I would do with my life at that point.
I don't know either. But anyway, I'm gonna try to put in again. You know how this works. We're gonna try to put in the safe states. Let me do the red ones first. Um, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, pretty safe. Um, Basically, this middle line right here in the country really is pretty solidly red.
Yeah, along the Mississippi.
Yeah, including Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. Indiana's going to go red, by the way. There's just no way uh, it's going to go blue.
We've got Mike Pants.
So, yeah, there you go.
So you get your hometown discount on voter identification.
Right. Yep, there you go. Well, I'll leave that blank for right now. Maryland, D.C., Delaware.
Virginia's a bold pick to put solid blue.
I, I, I know, and but I am thinking Virginia is going to stay blue this year. I don't think.
You think New York's going to stay blue?
In terms of Virginia, I don't think that the president's paying much attention to it anyway. I really don't think he is. And just with Northern Virginia or Nova growing as much as it has, even in the last 40 years, because last time, the last general election, Nova was the one that tipped Virginia over the edge. And as fired up as the rest of the state is, Nova has just been growing and growing, leading to more blue voters in that area. So I'm going to put 3 of Maine's 4 districts in blue, and then 4 of Nebraska's 5 voting districts in red. So these are what I presume are safe right now, and this puts us at a 218 to 120, which seems to be a network consensus if you look around at certain maps. This is where I see, probably there's no need to try to campaign extra in California. It is going to go blue. There's no need to really try to campaign extra in South Dakota. It's going to go red.
I also think that included on this should be Ohio and West Virginia going red because I do not see any other way that they will ever vote.
I'll put West Virginia as red. Ohio's is still technically a swing state, though, although it seems to be getting overshadowed by other swing states this election cycle. But technically, Ohio is still considered one of the swing states. Just saying. But in terms of everything else is pretty safe for their party. And then the blanks are really what determines these states that are not filled in right now are the ones that are going to determine the election this year. Obviously, it always comes down to a few.
Well, it comes down to 50 of them.
It comes down to 50 of them, but really late in the night,
50,
it comes
51.
down.
51.
No, that's not a state.
Well, 51 different.
Well, depending on how the Senate goes, it could be a state. If the Senate goes blue, or if it goes 50-50, and Joe Biden wins with Kamala Harris being the tiebreaker vote in the Senate, we could see a potential for a 51st state in the union. So keep your eyes open for that. But anyway, these are my predictions. Iowa, I believe, is going to go red. A swing state, 6 electoral votes. I think it's going to go red. I think the president will do well there with the populations and voting blocks that are present in Iowa. There's really a lot of rural voters. There's a lot of small business voters. There's a lot of people there who are just more likely to be conservative. And I will say the conservatives are a lot better at uniting during election time. They will. It's not like the Democrats right now where they have factions of liberals and moderates or progressives and moderates, I'm sorry, who are trying to fight for the future of the party. Republicans and conservatives are pretty good at keeping themselves together, no matter how much they might not agree with a certain candidate. They will vote red for their life. And I've said I'll stick to that statement. Um, North Carolina, in my opinion, is going to go red again. It's going to stay red. The president is going to retain that state as he won it in 2016. Um, Again, I think this is going to be a factor of conservative, uh, working class, lower earning levels, and really a lot more conservative voters found in North Carolina. I don't think there's enough of a liberal population in the state that's really going to push it over towards the blue, towards being blue, like it did in 2008 and 12 for President Obama. I don't think there's enough there for Vice President Biden to really go after. So I think he's putting his focus on other states. So North Carolina, in my opinion, even though by a slim margin, I think it's going to go to President Trump on election night. Uh, Michigan, in my opinion, is going to go to Vice President Biden. Again, I have said this now a few times in our streams that President Trump has pulled most of his ads in Michigan. Most of his campaign money is now going to other states, which means, in a sense, he's somewhat given up on winning the state of Michigan, which is significant because that really was the key to his success last time, was winning this state in the Rust Belt. And it's surprising, but he's just being considerably outperformed by Joe Biden in this state, as well as Wisconsin. Both of them are about a 6.5 to 7.5 point margin that Vice President Biden is currently leading in polls right now. And I don't think there was enough that happened in these last 4 years to really convince Michiganers and Wisconsinites, I believe is the correct term, to really stick with President Trump for another 4 years. I think at least enough of the population has decided to change their mind and go for Vice President Biden. And I will also put Minnesota in there.
In this sense of knowing each state and what their people are called, what do you think that people from Illinois are called?
Noise.
You are wrong. It is Illini.
A lot.
Yep, yes.
We're not having this conversation.
No, I'm right because the
Illini.
Illini.
The
because Illinois fighting Illini. It's just people from Illinois.
That's almost as bad as the Utah State Utes.
The Utes. That's what people from Utah are called. They're Utes. Which almost sounds like a slur.
Almost.
If I stepped up to the podcast and called you a Ute, I would get terrible comments. I would be canceled.
Depends on who's watching. It really does. But anyway, these three Rust Belt states over here at the top, the Great Lakes states, really, the top of them, the Great North, if you will.
Well, every Great Lake state. Ohio's not really Great Lake.
Right. Okay. So
they have the lesser lake.
Yeah. The Great Lake states are the three of them up here. The Great North I think, are going to go blue. Honestly,
the ones that have Lake Superior.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the best lake. You don't name a lake Superior unless it's the best one.
I can't disagree with that.
You don't call a lake Erie unless it borders on Ohio.
Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of Ohio, even though polls right now are showing that it's within striking distance for either candidate to win, as is the nature of Ohio, I still think President Trump is going to win the state of Ohio. I think there's enough there for him. He's, at least for the industry workers there, he's done enough for these specific workers in this specific state for them to really maintain their trust and keep them as of loyal voters in this election. It's going to be close. Again, this is going to be one of the closest states during election night, I believe, but it is going to be President Trump's column on election night, in my opinion. In Pennsylvania, like I said,
this is our point of descent right here.
This is our point of descent right now. I still think that there's going to be enough work done by the Biden
The
and Harris
hometown
campaign.
boy.
Yeah, what's the city called? Where's he from?
Who cares?
He's from the place that the office is from, I think.
Scranton.
Yeah, Scranton, Ohio. That was his
Well, you,
birthplace.
well, you mean Scranton, Pennsylvania?
I'm
Good
gonna get
one.
killed for this. I'm gonna get killed for this. But
Gerald,
anyway,
name 3 Orioles players.
we're not doing. If you want to hear me name 3 Orioles players, come back Friday for the We Talk Sports podcast. But
No,
anyway,
no, no. If you want to hear Gerald name 3 Orioles players, don't tune in because he can't.
yes, I can.
I don't believe you. Right now, 3 Orioles players
I'm not gonna do it right now.
because he can't.
Anyway, the state of Pennsylvania. I still think Joe Biden is going to do just enough to get the state into his column, and that's going to be one of the most significant developments of election night is the fact that Pennsylvania is going to go blue. The question surrounding Texas again, it is still within the margin of error in terms of polling. It has switched back and forth throughout the last 5 or 6 months, which is unheard of for the state of Texas, really. And at one point, Biden had the lead in terms of polling in the state of Texas. Right now, the president has it, but only by 1 point. So and I mentioned, like I said, I mentioned this to you earlier. Based on voting history, along with the fact that the president has the lead right now, Texas, I believe, will stay red. Will stay red this election cycle, although it is uncomfortably going to be close for the Republican Party and for the president. Texas should not be something that is a swing state. Texas should not be something that is not safely in the Republican column because it's Texas. It's known as being a Republican bastion and homeland, really, for people who consider themselves conservatives and consider themselves Republican. But for it to be this close, and again, I attribute that to the growing size of and the growing populations of major cities, mainly Houston, but also partially in Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin as well. And would be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what the reaction is to Texas. I still think it's going to go red, but it'll be close enough to make everyone's eyebrows raise on election night. Now, the state of Florida. The state of Florida is. I think this is where I'm going to disagree with the polling numbers because the polling numbers right now are showing that technically Joe Biden has the lead. However, he is still being outperformed by President Trump in the Hispanic vote column, which is an extremely important voting bloc in the state of Florida, an extremely important voting bloc in a specific voting district of Miami-Dade County. And the reason President Trump is outperforming Joe Biden with the Hispanic vote in Miami-Dade County and in Florida in general is because of the higher population of Cuban voters in Florida than there are in other states. And that means, and really the reason for that is that Cubans, when they nationalize themselves to become American citizens and able to vote, they have memories of
An
the
elephant.
regime, the regime of Castro, who was a socialist dictator, really, is what he is. And they have no fond memories of Fidel Castro or his brother Raul. And there's a reason they came to the United States is to escape that type of regime. And they see any kind of socialism, whether it be democratic or any other label you want to try to slap on there, they are not for it, and they are naturally going to be Republican. So in Miami itself, an extremely important voting district in the state of Florida, President Trump is outperforming Joe Biden within the Hispanic vote. He's still doing that within the state. He's winning the Hispanic vote everywhere else except for Florida. So that being said, even though the polls are showing Joe Biden with the lead, I'm going to take a jump. I'm going to take a stab and say Florida is going to stay red this election, at least right now. What I think would happen if the election was right now, what I think would happen, right now I'm going to say Florida is going to stay red, which means the president is going to retain it the same way he retained North Carolina. Really, the SEC conference is going to go for President Trump again, because I'm also going to put Georgia, even though it's close. Uh, Again, the city of Atlanta has a number of people really mobilizing, trying to register to vote and really make a difference within the, kind of like how you showed that picture of Pennsylvania, where it was literally just that tiny little slab that really made the difference in the state, right? But the when it comes to the state of Georgia, which is also growing, and not only Atlanta, but the state itself is growing in population. Um, Even though it's close, I still think there's just, in terms of voting history as well, I'm going to put it in the same category as Texas, where the voting history is still going to matter a lot more than we're considering in when you look at it at just polling numbers. So the state of Georgia is going to stay red and is going to be part of the uh, Republican coalition on election night. And the state of Arizona, this is something that is going to switch, in my opinion. Um, the the Senate race is really heated up, and Joe Kelly, the wife of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, is really doing a really good job of bolstering support in the state of Arizona, and he's getting a lot of people committing to go out, and the poll numbers are reflecting that. And that being reflected is showing that there's a lot more people in Arizona willing to vote democratically um, than there were in the last election, and I think that's going to make the difference. The president has not done enough, at least on the border along Arizona and Mexico, to really bolster his support that he had in 2016, or to retain the support. And I think it is actually going to flip and go blue. And that'll be one of the big, again, another significant update of election night. And in my opinion, uh, the final one singular district of Maine that is open for debate, I think that one's going to go red, but it's also going to be offset by the one free district in Nebraska that's going to go blue. So it's just going to be offset by each other. This is my final election map, at least as of tonight, for what I think the electoral map is going to look like on November the 17th. I'm going to say safely. On November 17th, 2020, this is what I believe the results are going to show in the nation in terms of how the people voted and how the electoral votes are going to be partitioned for this election cycle. And if you look at the top, this is a 290 to 248 split. So again, even uh, a smaller margin, Joe Biden would be winning by than Donald Trump won by in 2016, and that is indicative again of the current political climate in our nation right now. There is more divisiveness. There is more people taking sides. Again, this is not factoring in people who are going to vote in third party because they are disenfranchised by both of the two main parties at this point. This does not include the potential for the number of votes that might not be counted due to the fact that there's a high volume of absentee voting that might not get to election officials might not get to in time, mail-in voting that would have to be invalidated because of procedures that weren't followed correctly. All of those factors, extra factors that are going in right now. And again, I stand by. We are going to see a record low voter turnout or a record high voter turnout. We're not going to see the same turnout we saw in 2016. So, Corey, your thoughts on my whole little spiel I just went on for a little bit right now?
No, yeah, I think you're in the right place, but I'm backing myself up on this map. I think Arizona and Pennsylvania are going to run red. I think that the Nebraskan and Maine districts are going to run regularly with their same, the rest of that state demographic.
Okay.
And there is a good chance that one of the Great Lakes states also runs red. But that this right here is my assured. I'm 100% sure that everything that is in red will go red. Anything blue might change. The only things that I would watch out for, which are the places to look at, would be your Florida and your Pennsylvania, and again Arizona. But this is my confident, go to right here. And I
So
think this generates a very close, very, very close race.
So this current map, the way I just set it up right now by flipping Arizona
Correct.
and
Yep.
Pennsylvania for you is
Yep.
what you think is your most likely map for turnout.
Correct.
This is a 259 to 279 map.
A little closer, but I see
Yeah.
absolutely one of those changing, or not changing. I see them pretty much saying the same as the last election. If I put in the private chat, if you wouldn't mind putting up the image I showed you, that is the map that I think will actually happen.
Okay, yeah, let me pull it up real
Just
quick.
copy that and put that in.
Yep. By the way, the Giants lost.
Yes, they lost hammeringly, which makes the Washington football team the number 1 in the NFC East. So,
okay, so let me share the screen real quick. Ha ha ha! That's hilarious.
absolutely.
Yeah, this is what you think.
I see this happening, and I see it going all to Jeb. Nobody's really thinking right now, and I don't think anybody's in the right state of mind. But every single kind of Bush is bad. But Jeb Bush is going to be the one that turns things around. And I see this going 538 to nothing in favor of Jeb Bush. Hasn't even announced a candidacy or anything. Jeb all day.
Back on the Jeb train.
I've never been on the Jeb train, so this is my first time riding.
Oh, you're on. Oh, yeah, because you were on the Rand Paul.
I've always been on the Paul train. Shout out Ron Paul, by the way.
Both Pauls.
Both Pauls. Rand Paul, excellent. Ron Paul, better. But I believe that is going to conclude our episode of We Talk Politics for this week. We will be back here at around the same great time, but on a better day because there's hurricanes and fires, and hopefully the hurricane will be gone at least. But we'll be back next week, and until then, I will be Corey.
And I will be Gerald.
And that will never change. But we will check you next week. Hope you enjoyed this edition of We Talk Politics. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, hit subscribe. It will really help boost our profile. And we will catch you next week. If you don't mind, tune in to our Friday edition of We Talk Sports, where we will hammer PJ for the Giants sucking.
Yep, definitely. So, again, we'll see you guys. If you want to see us talk about sports, you know where to go. Link in the description. Other useful links also in the description. Again, like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you back here again when we're back on. So, see you.
Have a glorious week.